My brain's been in a really weird funk the last few days. And I'm just gonna start thinking out loud because my wheels won't stop turning. And while I think out loud, I'll drive a truck around. I don't need to tell you guys that stuff is crazy in our world right now, particularly in America. I spent most of last week building a driving cabinet, which I am currently using. It's not finished yet, kind of testing it out. But then George Floyd got murdered. Kind of sucked the joy out of my week. Probably sucked the joy out of a lot of people's week. And honestly, it makes me feel sick. And it's sparked a national conversation that needed to happen. It's needed to happen for hundreds of years. It needs to have never stopped happening. And I'm glad that the conversation is taking place, but my God, it's heavy. You know, I've tried a couple of times this year. If you follow me on Twitter, you might have seen me try to start conversations about racism, about discrimination, and it was not well received. I'm glad that it's happening, that the conversation is happening now, but the responses I got when I tried to start this conversation when nobody had died yet, well, not nobody. People have been dying due to racism for a long time. But before this particular death happened, the responses that I got, the deafening silence from other white people, and the anger from people of color who I guess were suspicious of me, it's made me afraid to talk now. I feel afraid to talk because I'm white. When I've tried to start these conversations before, I have gotten attacked because I couldn't possibly know what it's like to not be white. And that is a valid point. I don't know what it's like to not be white. I've always been white. I understand that because I'm white, I am in a position to use my privilege to help people of color, but I don't know what to do. I mean, the help that I have given has seemed so trivial. You know, Kat and I made a donation to George's family. I just made a donation to the Democratic Party here in Texas. I mean, not that the Democrats are much better than the Republicans, but, you know, the lesser evil and all of that. Yeah, I've signed petitions for charges against, I don't even know what the officer's name is. Like, I just block it out. Like, he doesn't deserve the recognition. The butthole that abused his power. Send him to jail. It seems so small, and I feel like it doesn't change anything. I feel powerless, and I want to help, but we're talking about 200 years of systemic racism. We're talking about living in a country that is designed to oppress not only black people, but anyone who is not of European descent, anyone who does not look like me, or at least have the same skin tone as me. I mean, there's plenty of people who want to oppress me too, because lesbian and all that. But to stare at 200 years of oppression, I don't know what to do. I am one person, and I want to help, but everything that I can do just seems so small. I felt this way on and off over the entire course of my life. I am embarrassed by my race. I know we have done terrible, terrible things, and I am ashamed. But I can't do anything to stop it. I can't go back in time and change it. I can't give you my white privilege as much as I'd like to. And I get frustrated. I get angry. And oddly enough, I get to feeling guilty. I feel guilty for being upset, for being angry, for feeling frustrated, for feeling powerless. Because what right do I have as a white person to feel any of those things? I haven't been oppressed. My rights have not been trampled. I've never been concerned when I was pulled over by a cop. Even when I have been racially profiled. I was pulled over in a small town in Michigan because I was driving home at 2 o'clock in the morning after working till close at Taco Bell. And I was pulled over not because I was speeding, because I wasn't, but because I was driving an '88 Chevy Caprice. And it was dark, so he couldn't see I was white. And as soon as he walked up to the car, he just said, I thought you were going a little bit fast, which I wasn't. Just wanted to tell you to slow down. And off I go. Why? Because I'm white. I don't know how you outlaw racism. I don't know how you get it off the force. And I don't know how to change people's thinking. Because that's what it comes down to. It's all in how we see other people, and I don't know how to make people see people just as people. When I was 14 years old, there was a black student in my class. And I grew up in a upper middle class neighborhood. And I had very, very little experience or exposure to people who were not white. It was the first time I had really had any kind of daily interaction with a person of color. And I didn't really pay much attention to it that I can recall. I mean, obviously I could tell he was black. I didn't like him. But I didn't like him because he went around telling everybody that his mother was a snowblower. And I didn't know what that meant. Don't Google it. I know what it means now. But I didn't like him because, yeah, he was just angry all the time. And he would tell everybody that their mother was a snowblower. And I didn't know what that meant, but I could tell by the way he said it that it was not a good thing. And I remember coming home from school one day, and I think he had called my mother a snowblower, and I was very upset. I came home from school, and I was complaining to my older sister that he was so mean. I didn't understand why he had to be so mean. And she said, you know, Andy, he's the only black student in the entire school. He is different, visibly different than everyone, and people treat him differently because of it. Of course he's angry. Like, I don't know why nobody had that conversation with me until I was 14 years old. But ever since that conversation, they're just people. I became friends with him. I remember I invited him to my Halloween party, which wasn't really all that of an amazing invite to get. I was not a popular kid. The only reason people came was the free food. But I invited him to my Halloween party, and my mom told me that when his mother dropped him off, she was crying and thanked her. Thanked my mother for inviting him. That nobody ever invited him. You know, I get it, Bunny. I care about as much about a person's skin tone as I do the color of their shirt. It's not that I don't see color, I just don't notice it until I'm forced to. Last night, Kat and I were having a conversation. We've had a lot of conversations around this for obvious reasons. Everybody's having conversations about this. We were talking about friends of ours and people we know online, right? And I just randomly would pop out a name and be like, oh, they're not white. That person isn't white. Not that I think everybody is white, but I just don't notice the skin tone. I don't notice the race until it's pointed out to me. And somehow I feel like I'm wrong now. Like, was I supposed to be noticing? Was I supposed to be mentally saying you're different? Because I think you experience different things than I do, but I don't think you're different. I think you feel joy and pain just the same as I do. And when I've tried to start these conversations, because someone points out color to me, because somebody says, hey, skin tones make a difference, I feel like I've been attacked because I noticed the skin tone when they're the ones pointing it out. This national conversation needs to happen. I'm glad that it's happening. I hate the price that we had to pay to have it, but it needs to happen. I just don't know where my voice fits in. And everybody seems so angry, and I understand being angry. But more than anything, I feel sad. And maybe this is just my lifelong struggle with bipolar. But everything just feels hopeless. Especially when I try to figure out what I can do. And I've seen white people do some really stupid stuff to try to stand together. I think that's what I'm afraid of. Right? That in my good intentions, I'll do something incredibly stupid and hurtful. I worry that my intentions don't count here. I want to be able to do something. I want to be able to change things. But change in this country seems so freaking impossible. I vote, but that doesn't really change anything. The politicians draw up the districts, divvy up the electoral college. I vote because it's something I can do, but I don't believe it actually makes a lick of difference. I think it's just a placebo for the masses. In this day and age, I don't even understand why we need the electoral college. Data collection is simple. There is no reason for an electoral college now. We can count the votes of the popular election and just use that. If we just use that, we wouldn't even have Trump in office right now. But again, like, that's one of those things, like, I can see the problem, but I can't see it's the solution. That's a frustrating thing here, DSJ, is every once in a while we will have a third-party candidate that I'm like, on paper you sound great and I would love to vote for you, but voting for a third-party candidate is basically throwing away your vote. A third-party candidate's not gonna win. You don't have the money behind you. He who has the most cash wins. That's how we got Trump. I feel like a politician's job is to get elected. There's very little governance going on. It's just campaigning. Always campaigning. The police brutality has to stop. It's sickening that the people that we pay with our taxes to protect us are able to do whatever they want, carte blanche, without repercussions. Incoming wall of text. Alright, I'm prepared, buddy. I'll pause if I need to. The reality and severity of racism in America is something that I've gradually been actually seeing for myself, mostly via the internet over time just recently. My mom told me not to judge or hate someone based on how they look, and that where it matters, everyone is the same. I grew up being taught to love everyone. Hatred towards race was always such an abstract concept for me. I grew up in the Bay Area, California, and my schools were always very racially diverse. I'm not saying that it didn't exist there, but I didn't really see it. And when I did see it, the majority of people would shut that person down. Racists were the minority, from what I saw. I thought the rest of the country was like that. I thought it was a thing of the past. Over recent years, I'm learning I was living in a safe little bubble. There are places where people who will speak out against racism are the minority. That terrifies me. That makes me so angry. That makes me so sad. It's not fair. I was sheltered from racism. I did not go to a very racially diverse school, but I didn't realize that racism existed the way that it actually does. My mother sheltered me from it. Like, I wasn't told to love people regardless of the color of their skin. I was just told that all people have value. And I never really considered that all people might not include people with different skin color because, well, they're still people. But I didn't realize it until I was about 12 that half of my family are all rampant racists. My mom sheltered me from it. My dad's side of the family, they weren't allowed to tell their racist jokes when us kids were around. They weren't allowed to make gay jokes when us kids were around. My mom stood up to them and told them that if they couldn't say anything nice, just to keep their mouth shut. And it worked. For a while. Until one day, while we were visiting Grandma and Grandpa, my sister and I were sitting on the couch in the living room, and we were talking about her boyfriend at the time, who was a black man. And my grandma was coming in and out of the living room. They had a living room, dining room area. And without even stopping as she walked, without even looking at us, just overhearing our conversation, she said, "You know, I don't understand how you can kiss those inward lips. It is the first time in my life that I had ever heard someone in person, not on television, say the N-word. I just stared at my older sister, like both of us, our jaws dropped to the ground, because neither one of us knew that our grandmother was a racist. And I wish I could say I did something or said something, like, Grandma, that's not appropriate or whatnot, but I didn't. And I was just shocked. I don't spend a lot of time with my dad's side of the family nowadays, because quite honestly, I don't like them very much. They're very judgmental people. This whole national conversation about racism has me wondering, like, am I supposed to do something about their closed-mindedness? Is there even anything I could do about their closed-mindedness? Because I don't think there is. I mean, the best I can think of is to just not associate with them. You're just coming in, hey chef, yeah, it's an emotional day. I'm just kind of talking about the whole state of our country. State of our country and the fact that I feel powerless. That's pretty much what we're talking about at the moment. You aren't powerless. I feel awfully powerless, chef. So I've donated some money and signed some petitions, but that doesn't feel like I'm really affecting any change. Then donate. Spread the word. Time. That has more power than you think. Show support. This is doing something. But I am talking to, I think I'm preaching to the choir, chef. I'm not affecting any change. I'm talking to a bunch of freaking loving, caring individuals. I'm not changing anything. I'm just talking to people who already know that racism is bad. That's not doing much. But it shows that we're not alone either. And we can show you aren't. Which gives us the strength to continue and to support others. Our strength isn't in the strength of our actions. It's in the strength of our numbers. We are the majority. It's the Electoral College that keeps us looking like the minority. I actually was talking about that before you got here, Chef Tig, that it irritates me, and I don't understand why in this day of information technology, why we even have the Electoral College. Data collection is so incredibly simple now that there is no reason for the Electoral College. We should just use the popular vote. Let the people decide. I understand why. I don't agree with why. Let's put it that way, Chef Dick. I think it is good to speak out when we feel the need to. If I didn't see so many other white people making statements in support of Black Lives Matter, I would have continued to think it wasn't my place to say anything. Even talking about it can be powerful. It can give others courage to also speak up, having an exponential effect. I'm trying to think, Bunny, if I have actually seen many white content creators saying anything. I mean, I've seen a few, but most of what I have seen, I think, has been white content creators retweeting content creators of other races. You saw Markiplier say something about it? Maybe I'm just too far removed from the internet. I will say, this may sound awful. Maybe I don't have a right to say this, but I have had to limit my exposure to social media in the last week because of this, because of how upset I get. And again, I feel like it's a little bit ridiculous for me as a white person to say it's too much. And I have heard content creators who weren't white complaining about white people who have to distance. Because what do we need a break from? There's no getting away from it. In the last week or so, I've seen maybe a couple of tweets that weren't videos of brutality and violence. I suppose we're getting a small taste of what some people's lives have been like since they were born. But I feel like what we're getting, Bunny, is many lifetimes condensed into 15 minutes of scrolling on Twitter. It's like super concentrated pain. And I'm sorry, my white privilege doesn't protect me from empathy. I'm sorry, I have to look away. Sometimes I have to look away. I know it's been going on for lifetimes, and I've never thought it was okay. Yeah, and the frustrating thing is staring at my Twitter feed. I know I'm looking into an echo chamber, right? I'm not following conservatives on Twitter. I'm not following people whose opinions I don't agree with. If I'm following you, I already agree with what you're about. All of our social media feeds are echo chambers. You follow people you agree with. You follow people who believe the same things that you believe. Like, I'm not going out and finding religious zealots to follow. You know, I'm following other liberals. I'm following people who believe people's lives have value, regardless of their skin tone. It is human nature to do so. It's confirmation bias. We don't like to be challenged. But that means that, you know, when I'm scrolling through my Twitter feed and I'm watching all these videos that showing violence and tragedy, I already know it's a problem. No. I mean, yes, from a societal standpoint, but I never thought that the civil rights movement was over. Until the prison population reflects the actual racial divides in our general population, something's wrong with our judicial system. Until neighborhoods are desegregated and there are Black people and Latino people who have enough wealth to live in the suburbs, our economic system is broken. I never thought that the battle was over. I can't ignore it all, though. I mean, I have to ignore some of it occasionally. I have to walk away when it gets too much, because I'm a feeling person. But I do think that it's important to be uncomfortable sometimes. I don't think ignoring it's the answer. I think I just wish there was more I could do, like that, to actually change something. And that's what gets me. I could handle all of the pain and the violence that I see if there was just something that I felt like actually made a difference, that I did that actually made a difference. But I don't feel like anything that I do makes a difference. I don't ignore it, I just look into it and not say anything unless it's brought up to you. Well, why don't you say anything unless it's brought up to you? I mean, like, here's my problem, Esmond. I'm not often in a situation where I need to talk about my views on human rights, because I, again, surround myself with loving, accepting individuals. Like, for my own mental health, avoid people who make me angry. And people who hate make me angry. So, again, like, I don't really need to say racism is wrong and terrible and should be stopped, because anyone I'd say it to would be like, yes, I agree completely, Squints. Like, am I supposed to go out of my way to find these stupid people and explain to them how stupid they are? Because honestly, if they're that stupid, I'm not gonna be able to convince them that they're stupid. They're too stupid to see it. But see, that's my frustration, Chef. What good is it that I am educated on these matters when I can't do anything about it? I know there's a problem, but I can't do anything. I can't make it change. I can't make our justice system fair. I can't redo highway placement so that urban development isn't so segregated. You can be the one who doesn't turn their head when you see something happening. Well, I never leave my house, Chef. I mean, you put me on a street and like, I'd like to believe that if I had been there, I would have attacked that cop. Consequences be damned, I don't care. But I wasn't there. I am not there. I don't see it in person. Kat and I actually had a conversation last night about the protests and whatnot, and Kat was saying she feels guilty about not going to any of the protests. But you know, like, one, COVID is still a thing. You know, in 2 weeks we are gonna have a massive spike in the COVID cases. I know that that's gonna happen. I don't want to be part of that problem. But additionally, like, even if that weren't an issue, I've got incredible social anxiety. I can't be around crowds without freaking out. When we go to conventions or things like that, like, I often just have to dart off on my own and go literally hide behind a booth or something, someplace where there isn't anyone around, because I freak out. And I explained to Kat that if I were at one of those protests where adrenaline was high and the crowd was thick and I wasn't able to get away, I would be part of the problem. I would physically attack, because that's how bad the anxiety is. Again, Panda, like for me, it feels so small. You know, like the tweets about making donations or the retweeting other people's information. Like, I'm still, like, I'm preaching to the choir. See, I think what worries me, Cat, Panda, I think what worries me is that we are a room full of white people trying to convince ourselves that we're doing good. So I think the next thing, following up on this, sometimes I need to just look away because it's too much. It's too much that they have to live with it, and yeah, it gets to be too much for me to look at, all concentrated like that. But it also puts me like in this weird frame of mind, like for streaming for example. You know, like, is it selfish of me to want to just be able to have a fun show, to just joke and laugh in the midst of this national conversation, which, yes, I agree, absolutely needs to happen. And not that I could just joke around right now, like, my brain isn't in that space, but really, like, that's what I want. I want to be able to laugh and joke. Not for things to go back to normal, I'm not saying that. I want this conversation to continue. I want this conversation to have meaningful and lasting change on our world. I do want to thank you guys for listening to me. Like, as I, like, processed all my feelings